So for me, this is just such an exciting topic, the topic of strengths or superpowers, because it's such a great question, isn't it? You know, what do you want to improve about yourself? And then if the answer is a negative, you know, is something that's not very strong about you, then you know, then there's something to change, because the research says that if you improve improving your strengths will get you a better result than improving your weaknesses. Now, isn't that a relief? You know, all the things that the teachers told you, your mother told you, your father told you, all the rest of it, or possibly the church or wherever, you know, research says that's not the best way to improve yourself. The best way to improve yourself is to increase and improve your strengths, your superpowers, if you like, your talents, your abilities. And then there's a really clever trick that happens after that, which is that then how do you use your strengths to manage your weaker areas, to manage to substitute for, to compensate for your weaker areas. And of course, those of you that you know, are professional people, either in an organization or self-employed, one of the things, I think one of the best things about being a manager is that you hire people to do the stuff that you're not very good at yourself. And that, you know, that's the sort of, you know, that's the great trick, isn't it? You don't have to be good at everything. You just have to have a team of people who can do what needs to be done. But also, if you're a, you know, private individual, professional private individual, outsource the stuff that you're not good at. Pay other people to do it for you, even in a small business. Or, you know, have a cleaner or have a gardener, or, you know, or hang out with people. You know, if you're shy and you want to go dating, find someone who's extrovert and wants to go dating and double date together. You know, where are the competencies in the world that support you, that support your strengths? And so one of the things that sometimes people do is they hang out with people who have the same strengths as themselves. But actually, it's more useful, and it can sometimes be more important to hang out with people who have really different strengths, because then they do the stuff that you don't like to do, that you're not so interested in. A great example of this is I have a really sort of quite a cool cousin called Mary Quant, who invented the miniskirt. And when I was, I think it was like maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, my parents had quite a large house. They were quite grand. They had dinner parties. All the ladies came in long dresses. I do remember the day that Mary Quant came in her miniskirt and black tights, I think. But she became famous because, for whatever reason, there was someone else at art school who called Alexander Plunkett Green. They were at art school together. They formed a business. He was really good at business. I don't know if he was very, you know, he's not famous for his design. She was really great at design. The combination of the two meant that they became really successful. So this view that we have, sort of slightly modern view that we have to be good at everything, is nonsense. What we need is the self-awareness of what our strengths are, what we're great at, the awareness without too much emotional charge of what we're not good at, decide to focus on what we're great at, and then recruit people, find friends, have partners, brainstorm with, hang out with, network with people who love to do the stuff that we're not good at. And that seems to be such a happy, you know, approach, solution to life. So I'm just going to show you a few slides. So that's the sort of the really gorgeous, let me get this to work, gorgeous question. You know, what do you want to improve about yourself, and make sure that it's focused on something, on one of your strengths, one of your skills, one of your abilities. If you do a strength test like Strength Finder, I mean, there are lots of different psychometric tests. I use Strength Finder because it's slightly business orientated, but it's you know, you can do it yourself. You can buy it on Amazon. You can sign up on the website. And, you know, so if you have, you know, your top 5 strengths are your most important, you know, and then you've got another 5 strengths, which are pretty important. And since the Donald Clifton came up with a list with, he was an academic who came up with 32 strengths. You can say that your top 15 strengths, are your strengths, if you like. So within that top 15, within that top 10, there are going to be strengths who you think, actually, I could use that strength more. How do I develop that strength further? But I'm particularly interested in people developing, understanding, knowing, appreciating, respecting their top 5 strengths, particularly when they're starting out looking at their strengths, just because it's a smallish number. And elsewhere I've talked about job crafting or job shaping, which is the idea that get your bosses, if you're in an organization, to give you a job that fits your life calling and your strengths. Or if you're a self-employed individual, have your own business, create a business around your life calling and your strengths. And so if you're working in an organization, or even if you're an independent consultant or coach, go and tell people what your strengths are. You need to know what your strengths are. You need to know what you love. You need to be able to talk about them. You need to understand the value proposition. Value proposition is, why would someone want to hire you? What will these strengths do for them? And it's really useful to know that, because then if you're working in an organization, you just tell your boss, keep telling everyone, this is what I love doing, this is what I'm good at. And hopefully they job shape, they create a job for you. One of the tricks I used to do when I was a coach in big organizations, I do less of that now, I'm still doing it, but really it's not my main thing, would be when there was massive organizational change, restructuring of organizations, there was often an opportunity for people to rewrite their job descriptions without anyone else noticing. And so then I would just go to all my coaching clients and say, now is the chance, rewrite your job description to fit your strengths. Leave out of your job description the bits that don't work for you, that you don't really enjoy. Hire someone to do the stuff that you consider to be trivial or unimportant or uninteresting. So what's happened? I want to go back to that, but I want to go like that. Oh, that's strange. So I want to, I've missed a slide actually. I don't know why it's not, hang on, I've got to, so if you focus on your strengths, the research says that you are 3 times more likely to report excellent quality of life than other people. It's really important in your work to play to your strengths. You've somehow got to sort of find a way of moving from, low strength roles or low strength job descriptions or low strength self-employed brand to ones that really focus on what your strengths are. And if we're going to spend a lot of our lives working, then, and I'll talk about personal lives in a moment. If we're going to spend a lot of our lives working, then let's do stuff that we love. Let's do stuff that talks to our life calling. And by the way, the videos about life calling from last 2 weeks ago is on YouTube, and the link is in the newsletter that comes out on the Saturday if you want to look at that workshop and do the exercises from that workshop. Let's spend our time doing stuff we love. And the same is true for our personal lives. How do we spend more time doing the stuff that we just really enjoy, being at our best? How do we spend more time being at our best? I'm really social. I really like to connect with people. I'll talk to people on the street. I'll have humorous moments with people walking their dogs. I've always somehow my unconscious produces a funny comment that makes people laugh, or is slightly edgy but makes them laugh. I interact with people everywhere. If I don't get social contact every single day, I'm not a happy bunny. I'm living with my partner Sophie now, but when I was single, I went out 6 nights a week, not because I was dating, but because I just needed the social contact. It's like, what rings your bell, and how do you spend more time doing that? If you spend more time doing what rings your bell, everything else you do will improve. That's what the research says. There's something called the broaden and build theory of positive emotion, which says that there are two benefits from doing activities that produce positive emotion. The first benefit is that you enjoy the activity itself, but there's a follow-on effect for the rest of the day, which is that you'll go, all the other things you do, you'll still be carrying some of that positive emotion. And so people who are good at this have better health, so many things, better health outcomes, longer life expectancy, more likely to be happy, better relationships. They're considered risks, risks that are not too low but not too high, which all of that works much more effectively. Communication is better. So doing what you love improves every aspect of your life, and using your strengths and playing to your strengths is a part of it. And if you love sitting at home, I know a guy who loves sitting at home doing stuff on his computer. If that's what you love and that rings your bell, wonderful. It's like, let's all be. A colleague of mine, Steve Gilligan, he doesn't say it anymore. I think he's become more respectable, but he used to say to his psychotherapy clients, you're an incorrigible deviant and it's gonna get worse. It was a sort of challenge. And what he meant by that was that we're all individual. Let's play to our individuality. Let's not try to be the same as everybody else. Let's try to be, as the one of the authors of the Gallup Strength Finder book wrote, you cannot be anyone you want to be, but you can be more of who you truly are. Now that's exciting, isn't it? So let's be the best in the world of who you truly are. And in fact, some of you will have heard me say this previously, if you take your life calling, which can be quite generic. So, I've never done a study, but I can imagine maybe there are only 20 or 30 different types of life calling. But when you combine that with your strengths, and when you combine that with your unique personal history, you're the only person in the world who has that combination. So you can be the master of a field of which, you are the only person who, who's in this field. You're in your own field. The competition isn't with anyone else. The competition's not a good word actually, but it's with yourself. Can I be the best I can be of this unique proposition, this unique person, with my unique expression out into the world? So if you're working to your strength, you're 6 times more likely to be engaged in your work. And there's that, I nearly found it, but there's that famous quote from I've forgotten his name now, the founder of Apple. I thought it should come to mind. Not Bill Gates, but the other one. Isn't that funny? It's just slipped my mind. But says that if you don't do what you love, because work is hard, particularly if you're self-employed, particularly if you're an entrepreneur. It's hard, it's tough. You better be doing what you love, because you're going to fall over, you're going to fall on your face. It's going to be difficult. If you're not doing what you love, why are you doing it? And people who are engaged in their work, this is really from the engagement research in organizations, big study of people in organizations. They work 25% harder. And, that makes intuitive sense, doesn't it? If you're doing what you love, you work harder. I mean, that makes complete sense. And therefore, not necessarily, because you might be working hard on stupid stuff, but there's a possibility that you're working harder on stuff that makes a difference. And then engaged workforces provide 25% more profit. This is research for big organizations. But if we translate that to the individual, you are more likely to be successful in what you do. And this is quite work orientated. So I just want to emphasize the personal dimension, which is just really, have a sense of what makes you feel great, and what you love doing, what you love spending your time on, what you're doing when you're great in your personal life, and then spend more time doing that, and then find a way of persuading everybody that this is what you should be doing. And also hang out with people who appreciate it. You know, one of the ways that they used to, you know, people would sometimes find out about strengths and life calling was to say, well, you know, what does it do when you're at work and you're just like skiving off a bit, you're just doing something that you shouldn't really be doing? And then very often that would give an indication of what the life calling was. It's like, find, you know, hopefully what we love doing is what we could be appreciated for by the people that we spend time with. So that's a different conversation, to spend time with your tribe, with people who get what you're about. Before I go to the next thing, I just want to find out any questions on what I've said so far. Questions or comments on what I've said so far. Great to have you here, Mel. Yeah. And just to say, you know, thinking about your question, but yeah, Celia, go on. That's good. You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, apologies. Yes, I mean, I've got all these great ideas and I do actually carry them through because I'm quite disciplined, but quite frankly, sometimes my motivation flags, even when I'm sort of thinking, oh yeah, you know, I'd like to do more art or whatever it is. So are there any sort of ideas of how we can get, you know, because life isn't sort of streamlined. Some days I just get to the point where I think I don't really want to go to that class. So how do we get back online and, you know, really pursue it?
It's a really great topic, and it's not quite the topic of today. The answer is feel the feeling. What is the feeling, and what's the positive intention of the feeling? So if you're doing something that's connected with your life calling, if you're doing something that plays to your strengths, that usually is plenty of motivation. But if there's a feeling of, oh, I just can't be bothered, what is that feeling saying to you? So a part of the life talent model, the generative change model, says that every feeling, every part of us has a contribution to make, has something important to say, and that we need to listen to it and find out what it's trying to contribute. And even if it seems disruptive, it's trying to tell you something. So that would be, you know, I would take you through an exercise where you would get a body-mind connected state, a sort of meditation state, and then just ask your guts or wherever the feeling is, you know, what is it you want? What's going on? I'd bring, you know, my warm, tender heart to that place and say, hey, what's happening here? And, you know, and it may be something that's current. There's something missing, you know, currently in your life, or it may be, you know, an old part, you know, a historic part of you, something from early life that has got touched. You know, I go to art school. I'm just making this up, Celia, but you know, I go to art school and the teacher doesn't really appreciate my work, and I think, oh my God, I'm going to listen to their criticism again. Sometimes in art schools, people that are very, very fixed on their particular style. And then if you do something different, they can be pretty mean. So is it that, or is it, you know, is it lack of being seen, or is it, you know, actually I'm going to art school, what I really need is a cuddle, but my husband's away, or my partner's away, or my wife's, you know, what is it that's so a really good exercise to do every day is to ask yourself every day to do a sort of body-mind meditation. So a meditation which includes your feelings, that gets you in touch with your feelings, and to say, you know, one question, you know, would be, you know, what's my woundedness today? Is there a part of me that hurts today? And then start with that, and then say, what's my longing today? You know, and then so that what's the longing that's the other side of the woundedness or the hurt? And then, you know, then sort of more with your conscious adult mind, what's my commitment to doing something about it? How can I support that emotional part of me? You know, our society cuts us off from our feelings so much. So the head says, I've got to do this. Yeah. And the emotion says, I need a cuddle, or, you know, I need to walk the dog, or I need to lie in bed this morning. And a lot of personal change, personal evolution, personal development is about integrating those two. This famous book, The Master and the emissary, and I can't think of his name right now, but it'll come back to me, on the neuroscience of left brain, right brain. McGilchrist says that, thank you, Mel. Mel just channeled it through the screen to me and went straight into my brain. That the left brain does not experience the world directly. All its information about the world comes through the right brain. The right brain is the one that truly experiences the world. The right brain is the master. The left brain makes the maps, writes the reports, does the PowerPoint. It's a sort of communication part that does, the analysis and writes the reports. But somehow the left brain had a sort of palace coup. It decided that it was going to have a coup d'etat and take over the state that is you, and has put itself in the top position. But actually, it shouldn't. It's not the master; it's the emissary. And where our education system reinforces that. And in the Master and the Emissary, what's beautiful, brilliant about the book, it's quite a tough read, I have to say. But what's beautiful about the book is the first half is about the neuroscience that supports this. The second half looks at the development of cultures going right the way back to the ancient Greeks and showing how this shift takes place from more somatic right brain living to the dominance of the left brain in modernity. And so that we've been educated that way. That's the way our world works. That's the way science works. Science is great, but it's not the whole of life, is it? Gregory Bateson, who was someone who bridged science, he was a great scientist, and spirituality, used this quote, sort of misquote, which went, man's reach goes beyond his grasp. Else what's a metaphor? The poetry of life is what goes beyond our intellectual grasp, isn't it? Soulfulness is what life is about, not just left brain analysis. We need left brain analysis to do business, to do science, to do this and to do that. But poetry, art, being in nature, love, playing with children, that is the richness of life, isn't it? But we're trying to corral all of that experience into this sort of left brain and analytical categories. And therefore, a lot of the time we're disconnected from ourselves. I've got my task, I've got my to-do list. I've got to do that, and just pull myself together, suck it up and get on with it, pull your socks up, Julian, all of those sorts of things. We try to override our somatic self. Cecilia, that's a long answer to your question. There's something going on that needs to be attended to, that needs to be appreciated. But that was slightly off the topic of strength, but nevertheless an interesting topic. The idea of life calling. Sorry, there are kids outside the window, which is a sign of life. I'm glad to say. I might close the window if it goes on a lot much longer. The life calling is somatic, and really feeling and enjoying your strengths is somatic. So if you're connected with that, you're more likely to be engaging your feeling self in a healthy and positive way. I'm going to close the window. That's better. Any other questions before we spend some time looking at our own strengths? Just to say, actually, something I haven't mentioned, which is, what are the methods for finding your strengths? The first is, self-reporting, making a list of your strengths, thinking, what am I good at? What do I love doing? What do I feel confident about? If I want to chat someone up in the street or a restaurant, or, a policeman or a consultant in a hospital, I'm really good at doing it. That's a strength. So what are the things that you feel confident that you're good at? That's, so that self-report method is, the obvious one. The second method is, there are tons of psychometric tests, of which StrengthsFinder is one. And there are lots of other ones that businesses use. They tend to be a little bit business orientated. That's the only advantage if you're talking about being a whole person, which is, not just your work life. And of course, the third one, which is actually the best one, but you have to be a little bit more courageous and interested in, is to interview people. What am I really good at? Take 10 friends, 10 work colleagues, and drop them an email saying, I've just been on a course where they'd like me to think about my strengths, what I'm really good at. I'd love to interview you briefly for 10 minutes, only on my strengths, not on my weaknesses. Can I give you a call? And then you write, you write it all down on a bit of paper, and then you compile the list, and then you include in that, any other ones that you've thought of that they missed. You create a summary, and then after that, then you if you're wanting to communicate this with other people or be able to talk about it in your work, you say, how do I talk about this in a way that people get the value of this, or in your personal life, my partner knows that I need to, run off and see people and have quite an active social life. And that's really important for my well-being. I'm not, I need to go out a couple of nights a week, a few nights a week. So, how do you communicate it to people in a way that they get it and support it? So those are the three sorts of methods. And we use these on Tools for Personal Transformation and Life Talent Program, and really explore these. And then towards the end of the Life Talent Program, we really spend time on how do I communicate this out into the world. And then in this year, I'm going to have a level 3, Life Talent level 3, which is, how do I build my business brand around my life calling and my strengths? How do I take my existing business? So level 3 will be about your business. How do I take my existing business and develop it around my life calling and my strength? Make my inside values my outside brand. I mean, doesn't that sound good? And that's what's called a love mark by the top marketing people. It's when there's a real alignment between what you love on the inside and what you're selling to people on the outside. But that's a different story. We don't need to go into that here. Okay, there don't seem to be any questions, so I'm going to take us into an exercise. Or if there is a question, you need to wave your hand quickly, because otherwise I'll take us into an exercise.
Julian, yeah, I just had an observation, really.
Go on.
Because this is something I wrestle with a bit. The right side of your brain, about writing poetry, being out in nature, laying in bed all day. It's all delicious. And then you go, well, I need to pay the bills and run a home and la la la. Well, so you have to be careful, don't you?
No, it depends. How can you? I mean, I have to be careful what I say here, but can you earn money laying in bed all day? That's really the question, But I would say it slightly differently, actually, which is that how can you use laying in bed as a well-being activity that puts you into such great emotional state that when you talk to people, they're just like, wow, it's so great hanging out with you. I remember one of the founders of NLP, John Grinder. I went on a course with him, and he was like 2 days back from the Caribbean where he'd been scuba diving, and he was so suntanned. It's almost like he still had salt water on his skin, and he was in such a good mood. It was very charismatic and attractive. So the question is, how do we do these things in a way that, how do we do the things that really nourish us in a way that we can bring that emotional state to our work situations? And if it sounds like you've got stuff in your work life that's boring. How are you going to get rid of that, Marina? That's what I want.
No, I haven't. It's just there's lots to do running a business. You remember?
Outsource all the boring stuff.
Yeah,
that's what I do. And that's a thing in itself, which is, how do you work out the bits of your business that are really critical and that your skill set is the most important skill set to do, and which are the bits of your business that are either not so critical and can be done by, you know, a hard hand, or are critical and you need to hire an expert for it? And how do you begin to delegate? And you know, my view is, if I can earn X per hour and I can pay a quarter of that per hour, you know, or a tenth of that per hour to someone else to do something for me, then that's a good use of my time, isn't it? You know, so I would rather have an extra coaching client per week to pay for people to do lots of admin for me than I would to do that admin, for example. So anyway, that's a sort of bigger story. Okay, great. So here here are the questions. It's really one question, but different versions of, let me just see if I can do this. Yeah, I've already said that. So it's really one question that we're going to ask and talk about in our groups of 3 or 4. You know, what am I doing? What do I do when I'm at my best? It can be a brainstorming thing. What am I doing when I'm at my best? What am I really great at? What are my strengths? What are my superpowers? You know, people, that's a sort of contemporary face. What do I just love doing? And don't make it just your work life. Make it talk about your personal life, because actually sometimes people say, oh, you know, I really just love chatting to people and listening to people, but you know, that's nothing to do with my work. And then you say, well, actually, how do you make chatting to people a part of your work? How do you focus on that part of what you do? So those are the questions. And so I'm going to give you, I'll just leave that up on the screen for a moment. Great. Great. All right. Okay, great. So I'm going to give you 8 minutes per person in groups of 4. One of you will talk about what you do when you're at your best, what you're great at, what are your strengths, what are your superpowers, and just brainstorm that. Everybody else is really attentive and listens. You don't interrupt too much. You don't give advice. Only in the last couple of minutes can you give advice. You're just really saying, tell me more, using reflective listening. Don't look at your iPhone while the other person's talking. Don't be distracted. All of that is noticeable online. And I will do the timing for you. So that's 8 minutes per person in groups of 4, starting now.
Christina. No.
You're in the main group. You haven't pressed your button to join a group yet.
I did.
Oh, well, you haven't gone anyway.
Okay, yes. Can I do it again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, there's three, group of three. We need a fourth one.
I'll worry about the numbers, Paul. You just go to your group.
Oh, it's very strange. I can hear here in the mean group, but in the breakout room, the system, the app show me that it's not, that I have problems with my speaker. I don't know, but I can hear clear, but in the breakout.
Okay, so yeah, Enrico, you need to log out and come back in again.
Okay.
And my group, there were three of us, and then the other two disappeared, and I was left alone in the room.
No, I moved them because I'm moving you to other groups. So
Oh, I see.
I'm
Okay.
just going to reassign you. So I'm going to send you to group. Let me just look. Group 2, great.
Okay.
So you should get a link now.
All right, got it. Yeah. See
Great.
you later.
Yep, see you later.
Could you resend my link,
Yeah,
Julian?
here you go.
There were lovely, room 3. Excellent. See you later.
Welcome back. Great. Can you hear okay, Paul? You can, good, that's good. Having troubles with the audio. Right. Miriam, where do I know you from? Oh, you're on mute.
Me?
Miriam.
Oh, I don't think you know me. I don't think I know you. This is my first time here.
And where did you find the link?
Oh, Julian, that will be very difficult for me to say because it was a long time ago.
Don't worry about it. I'm just
Somebody
interested.
sent a link to your work,
Yeah.
and I had it somewhere, and I found it a few weeks ago, and I decided to explore and
Okay.
see what it is.
Beautiful, brilliant, good.
Yes.
No, there are a number of different places that people come from, so it's always interesting to ask.
Right. Yes, I understand.
Yeah. Where are you based?
I am in West London.
You're in West London.
Yes.
Not so far from here at all then.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in South London.
Right.
Great. So in a moment, we're going to do a meditation. But any questions or comments before we do a meditation on your strengths? Yeah, Barbara.
It wasn't a question. I had a very interesting thing happen, which is after I got done talking, all of a sudden I realized that I had left off at least 5 of my best strengths, which was like, Oh, that's interesting. And they popped out later. So just.
Thank your unconscious. Thank your unconscious. Yeah. I mean, hopefully everybody, you know, all of you, you know, later on today or tomorrow or in your dreams, other things will come up for you. You know, always invite the unconscious to remind you of things. You know, there's what we know, and there's also what we, you know, what we don't know, we know. And so it's actually, we want what we don't know to come to consciousness. And so we need to allow intuition as well, to allow to, you know, sometimes, you know, there's that story of two fish are swimming along next to each other, and one of them says, tell me, what is this thing called water? You know, so often some of our strengths are so close to us that we don't even really know we have them. So you just have to sort of keep an open mind about it and keep curious. Is there anything that you've missed? That, you know, it may be something that people at work think's really annoying. You know, there may be a strength that you're not using well. You know, I'm talking too much, or I don't know what it would be, you know. You know, and then to say, actually, this strength in a different context would be a really useful strength. You know, you're quite aggressive, and actually there are some roles which need aggressive people, for example. Any other questions or comments?
We had trouble defining what a superpower is.
I just
agree with strengths. Then we thought superpower, and we got hung up on that.
Some sort of contemporary people use it as a word for strengths. You know, because there are all these Marvel movies out at the moment. You know, what's your special ability? What's your what can you do that very few other people can do? Mm-hmm. And so that's a sort of like an extreme strength, or what would they call it? A strategic strength. A strategic strength is something that you're so good at that you can teach it to other people, or that you could teach it to other people. Not necessarily. You know, that's a sort of superpower. I don't always do it because I'm not always interested in talking to everyone. But if I really, really want to connect with someone, I can just about do it with anyone in almost any situation, but only if I want to. Sometimes I'm in a bad mood and people say, he's a grumpy old so-and-so. But when I'm actually wanting to, it's sort of a superpower. And I have fun with it as well. I'll do it, you know. I got a security guard in an airport in China dancing with me. You know, I felt very pleased. You know, I use it for play. That's one of my main uses of that superpower. Not a main use, but one that I enjoy. Does that make sense, Di? Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
You want to have those sorts of. I mean, actually, I don't like the Superman, superpower, you know, that model very much, because they're all light and there's not much room for dark. And that's why I like Batman, because he's a human being who's used his abilities to the best of his ability. But I do think having a sort of, you know, a poetic view, you know, I'm like Gandalf, I'm like Galadriel. I've got the, you know, I'm a wizard. You know, I used to say that I was a wizard who the stars were on the inside, you know, the stars you have on a wizard's cloak. They were on the inside of my pinstripe suit. You know, I was in camouflage in pinstripe when I was in business. So to have those sorts of metaphors, I was talking to a woman working for a bank yesterday, and she was talking about being a sorceress and a wizard, you know, and a shaman, you know. And so, you know, have metaphors that help you to really think about, what is this strength and how do I develop it? The exercise we haven't done today, folks, by the way, is the whole thing about, okay, so I know what my strengths are. How do I develop them more? You know, do I need to go on training courses? Do I need to practice them more? Do I just need to use them more? You know, focus around them more? How could I use these more? That's just one of a whole list of exercises one could do on strengths. You know, other exercises would be, how do I compensate for my weaknesses, using my strengths? How do I improve my strengths? How do I make them even more of an asset? Those are all really good questions. So any other questions before we do a meditation on this?
And I very much enjoy talk about the strengths. I think for group discussion, focus on myself, I feel good. I always discover deeper about my strengths. I feel so confident. I like this learning group. Thank you.
Right. Good, good, beautiful. Yeah. By the way, just to mention it, I'll just mention, because, you know, I love the shadows. No, I love the shadow side as well. Your woundedness, if you do enough healing with your woundedness, they become a part of your strengths. That's a sort of one of the great secrets. Very often people feel like there's all the great stuff that pulls me forward, there's all the bad stuff that pulls me back. If you do enough healing on the stuff that pulls you back, that becomes a part of your strength. And I'll be talking about that in other sessions, but not really today. I'll just mention it because at the end of the day, if we can include and work with every aspect of ourselves, then it all becomes useful. I won't say more than that. Okay, so we're going to do a meditation. And how many of you have, is there anyone who hasn't ever done a body-mind meditation before? Like a sort of a relaxation exercise, just to check if there's anyone who hasn't done that. Great. I like some people to keep their cameras on because it helps me, because I get feedback off you. But other people sometimes, like, they want to meditate with their eyes closed, they're worried if they're going to dribble and they want to turn their camera off. That's fine too, you know. So, you know, as long as a few people keep their cameras on, that's great. And sometimes people like to stand or to move, particularly people who've had generative change training or creative mind training, because what we want is, we want it embodied. The way that I always start is just by paying attention to my senses. So just to, you know, just to feel my body. And to pay attention to the air temperature, to notice muscles, to do a little body scan, you know, to go down through your body, paying attention. Where is it comfortable? Where is it painful? Is it hot? Is it cold? What's happening in this universe, this galaxy called my body? Just bringing your warm, compassionate heart, your curiosity, your interest. Our deep wisdom is in the body. The cognitive mind is a sort of a recent bolt-on to this amazing organism. It's a recent thing. All the deep wisdom of the ages is in the body, in the unconscious, in the right brain, in the aesthetic. Of course, they talk about the three brains: the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain, the belly brain, which is where all our feelings reside. So just make sure that your body is comfortably supported. I have both of my feet on the floor, and the chair is like the third leg, so that I'm just comfortable. And I'm just checking that my arms are relaxed, my shoulders are relaxed. Listening to the sounds. As many of you know, I like to start with the sounds outside the window, which is very quiet at this moment for me. And then I listen, are there any house sounds? And even absence of, listening to absence of sound is a listening. And then what are the sounds in this room, in your room? And then are there sounds in your body that you can hear? One can just pretty much always hear one's breathing. And it has to be very quiet to hear one's heart. And then, of course, listening to your inner voice and listening to it from a distance. There's a voice in your head that you can be curious about, listen to from a distance, like you would at a party or a networking meeting. You don't necessarily have to believe everything it says, because you can hear all these other things, because you can feel all these things, because you can see all these images in your mind's eye. You're much, much more than just that voice in your head. So just it's one of your resources. It can be helpful, it can be unhelpful, but you just listen, be curious. Is it telling me something about how I'm feeling, for example? And then noticing what you can see. Most people have their eyes closed. So then you would notice the darkness of your eyelids. Perhaps the light on your eyelids, so that you can see probably the redness of the blood in your eyelids. And there may be other little things that you can see as well on your eyelids. And then, of course, there are images in your mind's eye. Just letting oneself settle down, relax, be still. There's nothing to achieve. You're not a problem to be solved. You're a mystery that's unfolding. You're a flower or tree that's blossoming. You have to allow the natural processes of blossoming to take place without interfering too much. There's a story of a master gardener teaching two children to garden, and he gives them a tree to plant. But over the next few days, the tree doesn't seem to be doing very well, and he checks the instructions, checks the watering, checks all of those things. But the tree isn't growing very well, and he goes out early one morning and says, I wonder what's happening here. And he goes and finds a spot where he can observe the tree without being noticed. And then the two kids come along and they dig up the tree and take it out of the ground to see how it's growing. Sometimes just interfering too much in our own growth process, ruminating, talking to ourselves too much about our own growth process actually interferes with the growth process. So it's just trusting that you're a mystery that's unfolding. The conscious mind is the tip of the iceberg. Your unconscious, your aesthetic nature, your body is doing all these things out of awareness, and then occasionally popping something into awareness for you to notice with your conscious mind. Milton Erickson would talk about the rider and the horse. The rider says, get me to the edge of the forest, but the horse is the one that chooses the steps on the way to the edge of the forest. You let the horse walk and move the way that it needs to move and walk. So something about trusting. We came with a strong intention today to find out more about our strengths and to develop our strengths more, to use our strengths more. So just we can relax and let our body-mind develop this theme. And my role is just to act as a guide, rather like a gardener. I can help put fertilizer and good soil around the plants and protect the plants from animals that might want to nibble their leaves, or make sure that they've got the right amount of sun, but actually the plant does the growing. It's your journey. So I want to just start with a sense of, do you have a sense, perhaps you do, perhaps you don't, of your life calling, your mission? Do you have some sense of that? And if you do, you can invite that in now. What are you most passionate about? What's most important to you? What might your gift to the world be? And then as you're sitting here wondering about that, if it's interesting, wonder about it. If it's not interesting, move on to the next idea. What strength comes to mind first? See yourself using it when you're at your best. See yourself using it in a familiar context. But then, and feel how that feels. Perhaps hear the sounds associated with it. But it might also be interesting to imagine yourself using it in an unfamiliar context. If you were imagining using that strength at work, imagine using it in your social life. Or if you're using it in your social life, imagine using it in some other context. I can listen to people in a business meeting room. I can listen to people at a party. I can listen to my godson. I can even connect with animals and pets, not quite listening, but feeling. Just imagining using that strength and enjoying, playing, dreaming about how you might use this strength in different contexts. You're rather like a beautiful, delicious soup. You are a beautiful, delicious soup. Now find the next strength. Allow another strength to come to mind, which is another ingredient in the soup. So let the second strength come to mind. See yourself using it. Enjoy the feeling of being at your best. And then allow other strengths to come to mind. Seeing them, enjoying them, adding them to the soup that is you. Seeing yourself, someone with these strengths. And what would happen if you really used your strengths even more fully? what would happen? What would you look like? Make an image or a movie of yourself using your strengths even more. What would you look like? What would you sound like? What sort of situations would you be at your best in? Just making a beautiful movie. Maybe it's a Hollywood film director, someone really cool who's making this movie of you with your strengths amped up, using them even more confident in them, even more self-expressed. And your work, perhaps, if you're still working, making it your brand, your strengths and your life calling are your brand. Or if you're just thinking about your personal life, being someone who, that's what people say about you when you're not in the room. Oh, he or she's like this and this and this. And during this evening, and your dreams tonight, and the days that come, perhaps you'll just enjoy imagining more fully yourself using your strengths even more. And maybe there are strengths you want to practice to develop them further. Or maybe there's some little bit of training that would be helpful or useful. Or maybe you need to tell friends about these strengths or a particular strength and get encouragement and support in developing your strengths. Perhaps it would be great to talk about your strengths with a close friend who will say yes to you, not to someone who will comment and say yes, but. Don't talk to your strengths to yes, but people. Or perhaps enjoy talking to people who will say, yes, I knew that about you. Yes. Use it even more. Yes. Be brave and enjoy. So we're almost out of time. So what I'd like you to do is to gradually reorientate to the screen. And to turn your cameras on when you're ready. And just stay deeply connected. I always prefer to interact with people from these deeply connected states than I do from the normal, logical, linear consciousness. This is much more interesting way of living. And so just one by one, give us a phrase or a word or half a sentence about how you're feeling right now.
Wonderful.
There's no hurry because we're coming back quite quickly. Just in your own time.
Better and better.
Say it again, better and better, Gianrico. Great.
Thoughtful.
Inspired.
Relaxed.
Great.
Full of marble.
Say it again, Zarko. Oh, you have to unmute to say it again.
I said marvelous. Or something
Marvelous.
Like
Right.
yeah.
Comfortable.
Very peaceful.
Relaxed, calm, peaceful.
I feel in harmony and relaxed.
I wonder how Marina's dog is feeling.
Have you not here?
You did the meditation with us.
Lovely to see you. The next session is on the 22nd of June, 2 weeks away, boosting your psychological resources. So that's the session will be designed to do that. And really lovely having you here today. Lots of love to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very
you,
much.
Julian.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
You. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.